welcome to what may well be the dream GTR battle. So what we have here is my friend's recently purchased Auto Select R34 GT-R against another really highly built R34 GT-R that Garage Saurus put together. These cars are both picked up by Andy at Powervehicles and just basically ready to be shipped out to the US as soon as that kind of 25-year mark hits the spot. But before that happens, I've been given the chance to not only bring you a kind of look at two ways to build the same car, but actually sample them at the Higashi course here in Ebisu Circuit. Again, these are cars that have been bought and purchased, so you know they're owned. I'm not going to push them crazy. It's just kind of getting an idea of the different approaches that you can take when building R34 GTRs. So the silver car is actually being built by Sawa-san of Auto Select down in Osaka. So, you know, I really define this kind of style as Kansai style. It runs a fully built RB26, I think it's 2.7. It's basically a track car. This car was actually raced by a customer at Fuji Speedway. I think it's done a 153, which is ridiculously quick for a car of this kind of caliber. This one Andy picked up and realized that it was actually built by Garage Saurus. And what he did was take the car back to them and have them kind of refresh it. So it's running a single turbo conversion, updated everything, stroked engine again. The cool thing about this car is it actually runs a sequential, so it's on a Hollinger 6-speed sequential, kind of like not as extreme as the Kansai style I was talking about, but definitely has that Garage Saurus feel about it. So we've lined up the cars at the Higashi course pits. So let's start with Dan's Auto Select car. As you can see here, even the engine has been kind of signed by Eiichiro Sawa, the owner of Auto Select. So this is a built RB. It's running a high mounted hybrid Mitsubishi turbo, kind of like the same sizing as you would imagine a T88 to be, but some hybrid concoction that Auto Select has put together. So this puts out 820 horsepower, which is absolutely wild. And like I mentioned, it still needs to be refined tuning wise, because that's what Dan has to do once the car gets to Florida. Spot a Tomei fuel regulator there, that signature Auto Select massive strut base that kind of has been used across their entire lineup of demo cars ever since they came up with this. I quite like the airbox. It has like a clear plastic cover on top, so you can actually see the HKS mushroom filter under there. Alright, so on the intake side of this Auto Select RB28 is a trussed inlet manifold. You'll see the SARD Racing fuel rail here, providing all the fuel necessary for those 820 horsepower. And right next to it is the Garage Saurus 34. So again, I would say this is similar but different in the way that, you know, it definitely has Kanto style tuning vibes, or even Hokkaido, because of course, you know, Garage Saurus actually started off in Hokkaido and then moved down to Kanto to set up the shop close to Tokyo. So Andy at Powervehicles picked up this car at auction and noticed straight away that of course it was a Saurus build, and he took it there and they kind of freshened it up, gave it new wheels and a very meaty brake setup. Those are the Saurus calipers I was talking about, front and back, hiding behind the TE37 S Plus Time Attack in black, which I have to say look really nice against the Bayside blue. So the Auto Select car rides on similar black wheels, but these are Advent GTs, 5 spokes, and like I mentioned, endless 6 spots, front and back. So another thing this car has is the Auto Select vented Z-Chin style fender. So they have the Z-Chin like flaring out here at the top where it meets the A-pillar, but also this air outlet to kind of get air out of the wheel arches. In the back, carbon trunk lid, higher wing risers, and a Mines wing flap here on the back. The Saurus car runs a Generation 1 Nismo bumper, and then it has a carbon fiber lip that's kind of merged into that middle section that the original bumpers had. That kind of flows into carbon fiber side skirts made by Garage Saurus. And again, more carbon here at the back to finish off the lower section of the car. Just like the Auto Select car, there's some taller wing risers, but everything else has remained stock adjustable lip there for the spoiler. Another cool thing about the Auto Select car is that it actually has left-hand windows all around, so this is full-on race car stuff. So Auto Select engine bay, again we have a very similar treatment for the intake, a Trusk-ready fuel rail, and then the signature Saurus cam covers that actually have this center section that's being cut open to kind of give air to the coils, and the embossed Saurus logo just under the RB26 marking on the cam cover. Next to it you can see that the sensor for the exhaust cam has been removed. That's all done with the Link ECU, as it has been done here with a slightly different setup. So the hot side, we have a T88 R34 GK, so that's the big version of the T88. This is good for 800 plus horsepower, but in this setup it actually runs 750, and with that Hollinger sequential it just comes in strong and just stays on boost every time you shift. I even noticed there's a bit of a drag touch here. Of course this is Garage Saurus, they would definitely do something like this. It's a line lock setup which you can activate with a few switches on the right side of the dashboard. Alright, so we took a look at the engines, and I think the best thing to do now is to take each car out and kind of figure out what makes these 34s different from one another. They're, like I keep saying, they're the same but different, and I just like to kind of feel that difference, you know, behind the wheel. I just jumped into the Garage Saurus tuned R34 GT-R. This car is actually heading to Florida, to RMC Miami, and basically I am here at Ebisu Circuit. Again, like I mentioned, I'm gonna have a quick play with the cars just to get a feel of the difference, the different way that these cars were tuned. It's a Hollinger 6-speed sequential, and the clutch is very, very heavy. Before I start anything regarding the cars, a massive thank you to Kumakubo for allowing me to shoot at Higashi Course, Ebisu Circuit, after the day sessions are done. It gives us so much more to do with these cars. You know, we wouldn't be able to do this kind of stuff on the road safely and without, you know, getting in trouble. So massive thank you to Ebisu Circuit and Kumakubo for the opportunity. Immediately, you know, this car puts a massive grin on my face. The sequential, the whining sounds from the transmission, it's just so raw, but at the same time, as you get on it, it's just so smooth. The single turbo really coming into boost at about 4,000 plus RPM with a wallop of torque. You can hear it right here. And then of course the shift down is pretty aggressive. I'm not gonna do, like, you know, full power shifts. I'm definitely gonna use the clutch with respect. The sound is absolutely wild. This is such a well-prepared car. You can really feel the handling is on point. The braking is unbelievable. We have Garage Saurus calipers all around, monoblock, machined and built in Japan. you know, top level stuff. That was 7,000 RPM, and what a sound. Absolutely wild. So it's time to change over, jump into the Auto Select R34 and sample the differences. Alright, we are in the Auto Select R34 now. Okay, so the thing with this car is that it hasn't been mapped yet, so we're going for about 5,000 RPM. But it should be enough to kind of understand the difference. Power-wise, the Garage Saurus is about 700 to 800, somewhere around there. This one is 820, so serious stuff. And my friend Dan is gonna have a lot of fun with this car, I'm sure. The cool thing about these cars is that they are both going to Florida, so I'm sure whoever ends up with the Garage Saurus one, and then of course Dan's car here, they're gonna have a lot of fun on the highways there, you know, kind of replicating the one gun. And back when I met Dan, when he was living here in Japan, he was actually doing a lot of one gun stuff with his old R34, which just so happened to be exactly the same color as this. So instantly I noticed the suspension is much stiffer. So one of the first things I noticed about this 34 is that it's running the endless 6-spot monoblock calipers all around. So 6 spots at the rear too. I've never seen anything like that on any car, let alone a GTR. So I'm quite interested to kind of find out what the braking is all about. It definitely is very much on point. Pedal wise, there's a lot of feel, initial bite, just getting the pads warm. Give it about 5,000. That's just as it's getting on the gate. And of course this is not a sequential, it's a stock get track 6-speed. Torque arriving. So there's a host of little intricacies about this car. So many interesting choices that have been done by Auto Select when they first built it for their customer that, like I mentioned, you know, was taking this car out at tracks like Fuji Speedway, but also, you know, kind of driving hard on the road. Definitely going to enjoy this car. While I was mentioning that the suspension was very stiff, it actually works out really well on track. was actually talking to the owner, Dan, last night, and he kind of mentioned that he wants to respect what Sawa-san at Auto Select did with this car, so he's not gonna take away from any of that. He's definitely gonna spend some time kind of restoring some elements of the car, getting, you know, components that have kind of aged over the years back to factory spec and OEM quality, and just kind of perfecting the whole package really, but maintaining this, you know, feel that this car has. The Auto Select shark kind of approach to building cars. You know, Auto Select has been around for so many years, and they've definitely developed their very particular style when it comes to building GTRs, and it's always been about extreme, be it on track, on, you know, the drag strip, but especially on the road too. Alright, let's take a look at the interior of the Garage Saurus car. So it's pretty simple, stock seats still, and stock everything except one thing you notice as soon as you come in, and let me close the door so we stop the beep, is the complete conversion here that replaces the stock MFD unit. And if we actually turn the car on, you'll notice that it's completely different, but again the same. So they've actually recreated the stock bar graph. So what this does is basically take the data from the HKS F-Gun V Pro, which sits right down there, if you see it, and displays it in a very stock-like fashion with this bar graph. But if you scroll through the various pages here on the touch panel, wrong way, you'll see that there's a bunch of other displays that you can play around with. Got the G meters, customizable 3-meter display, one that kind of looks more like something you would find in an R34 GT-R, and then something a little bit different. Of course, the cool thing about these setups is, of course, that you can design your own display. Another cool thing here is that they've actually removed the hazard switch. They've put it down here, and behind it is the display for the gear of the sequential. So if you pull back, it tells you what gear you're in. 0 means neutral, and then the numbers keep going up. 2-DIN head unit, Nismo white meters, and a PLX multi-gauge display right next to it. There's even an HKS EVC-IR boost controller with its own digital display mounted high. Alright, next up we go in the Auto Select R34, and you'll have to pardon me because I have to wedge my body into this tiny little bucket seat. Right, what we have here is something slightly more built up, I guess, you know, more complicated, more parts. So we have a Momo steering wheel here mounted on a quick release boss, and again we have another interesting display here. Actually, I'll turn the engine on so everything stops beeping, and to do that you have to press this button here. Just listen to that lumpy idle. So once you do that, the display should come into life, and you get the Auto Select shark logo, and then eventually it will go to the main display page where you get an RPM gauge, both digital and also, you know, graph display, and then a bunch of readings from all the temperature sensors. We have oil temperature, water temperature, boost, oil pressure, fuel pressure, and air fuel ratio. Just like in the Garage Saurus car, there is a PLX multi-gauge circular gauge here. Right below here, I'll go this side, is actually a Japanese radio detector. Over here we have a DEFI temperature gauge for the radiator, so water temp. And then, just like in the Garage Saurus car, we have the Nismo gauges in white. And of course, this being a track car, we have an HKS circuit attack counter, and the lumpy idle is shaking the car so much. That's pretty cool. Well, there you have it, a fun afternoon, or evening rather, at Ebisu Higashi, comparing two very different but very similar 34s. I would call it Kanto style versus Kansai style. You let me know in the comments which one you preferred, And as ever, let me know in the comments what you thought. Make sure you check back soon for more.